Can everybody hear me now? Is it better?
I can hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
I can hear you, Joe.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm going to put everybody in the mute just in case if there's any background noise, but we'll continue from here. Sorry about that. So as I was talking about labor cost analysis here, we are looking at labor cost. Typically in a service organization, labor cost tends to be the highest spend for any services organization. And even for not organizations which are not services related, like either they are healthcare or retail or manufacturing, labor cost tends to be one of the significant spend. And what we're trying to do here is to analyze what we are spending, where we are spending, why we are spending more money on overtime or callbacks and those kind of situations. And then how do we analyze those situations? How do we know that this is the best or optimum spend that we are making, and is there a way we can save money by either doing better scheduling or better allocation of resources and so on and so forth. So we'll see how data analysis can help in this whole process. As I just mentioned here, typical labor cost for any organization can be between 30% to 70% of the gross revenues. The more you tend towards the services organizations, that number is much higher, towards the 70% line. And most of the time, the situation is, okay, is there a way we can avoid any unintentional or unwanted hours? Can we reduce overtime hours? Again, the intention is not to reduce anything to zero, because that's probably not going to happen in a given scenario practically for any organization. But can we put it to a level where it is manageable? It is better managed. It is better scheduled. You can forecast things in future with better predictability and things like that. So we'll look at how data analysis and some of the predictive analysis and statistical tools can really help us on the data that we have at hand. And this data can be not just the labor cost or timekeeping data, but about data from sales perspective, be it orders in pipeline or historically what you have seen in terms of requests, if it's a services organization, and how the utilization have been, and so on and so forth. So idea here is how do we really make this work for a customer. There are 5 or 6, these are the 6 critical aspects when it comes to labor cost optimization. So pay practices and processes that avoid and reduce excessive labor costs. Timekeeping data and labor scheduling systems. I think so this is another, I think one of the biggest areas that we are seeing where things can be optimized better. Sometimes there is always a gap between what you should be scheduling. And again, this is based on sometimes it's a practical difficulty where you can't really do beyond the point. But idea is do we know what is that point? Do we know what's the best possible scenario? And then are we doing that every time, every week, every day, as opposed to trying to somehow manage it? Scenario modeling, so what happens if suddenly I get 100 requests, 200 requests, or suddenly I get something where I need to find out people with the right skills, people with the right, can work in the right hours. And so there are a lot of variables just beyond labor cost that we might have to look at when we are looking at this whole situation. I'll skip these slides and basically just talk about some of the areas. So how we can do analysis of overtime, how we can do analysis of meals, cancel meals, and various those kind of costs. The key here is we are trying to manage different types of different components within a labor cost. So we are looking, so regular hours are there, but then that is based on the scheduling and the utilization of those hours. But apart from that, how many people are clocking overtime hours? Which departments are abusers of overtime? Which departments have a significant ratio of callback or meals that are being missed? So people are actually working during the meal hours, which can also be a regulatory issue, a compliance issue for a lot of states like California and things like that. So now what we're looking at is how do we control and manage your labor force in terms of making sure that they are optimal in terms of productivity as well as the cost aspects. So we'll directly jump into, and I'll come back to these slides. So let me jump into, give me 1 second here. So this is an example of a dashboard where we are analyzing only overtime hours for a specific organization. Now this, you can have different locations, different branches, different departments, different people who are in charge, different business units. So what you're looking at here is, okay, you're looking at your regular hours, your overtime hours, and for this organization, for example, let's say you have a threshold that you should not have more than 3% overtime across the board, whether it's at any department level or at an organization level. So you're looking at now month on month how these numbers are moving in terms of overtime percentage versus regular hours. So that's one way to look at it and seeing, and then superimposing your sales activities or your revenue activities on top of this to see whether the overtime is justified because you are seeing more revenue or more sales from your customers. There are more requests coming in, or there are more orders in the pipeline, and because of which you are spending more overtime. So idea here is not just to look at this in by itself and see why you're spending more time and more overtime hours, but it's also in line with whether they are in line with the activities that are supposed to be there based on what you're trying to do as an organization. This is a very month-by-month analysis. As you can see, we have given a threshold of 3% here just to show the dynamics of how you can look at this data by month-on-month basis. You can drill down by different departments and different people. At employee level, you can look at this information by different people who are in charge of different vice presidents or department heads or those kind of things. We are also looking at, so the crux of the data is there are different ways in which you can look at this information.
Wow. I want to do that.
Just a second here. Now, I wanted to come down to this screen here. So what we have done here basically is we are integrating all your timekeeping data. So if you're using systems like any timekeeping system that you're using within your organization, we will be able to connect to that data system. And once we look at the time-picking data, punch in, punch out data for your employees, and looking at your various thresholds. So, for example, you can say that I have a threshold of overtime. For example, you, as I said, 3% threshold that you may have, or you want to increase. You can say that I want to have a threshold for 5% or 10% based on, again, your industry, your organization, how you're scheduling people. So based on that, what we do is we will be able to showcase where you are seeing issues in terms of where departments or employees or people who are basically are going above that threshold. Now, what we call that is a potential savings. It's not really a savings because you don't know the situation of what really happened unless you go into the details behind the situation. So what we do is you can actually now drill down into why this overtime really happened. So when you're looking at this overtime data here, so now we are getting into the details of the overtime. So we are looking at by department, for example, and we will look at this information now. you can look at this information change over time. So how the information has changed over time by month, but also how the information has changed by different types of skills. And that's where I think so it makes a big difference, because now you're looking at different skill levels within your department and seeing how the overtime and the number of hours have really been shifted. Okay, I think so there is some other issue again. Hopefully people can hear now again. Can everybody hear now?
Yes, we can. We can hear you here. I guess only the Sharina, she's having issues with that.
Yes, I can hear you.
So what we are showing here is basically which we are getting. So just to reiterate and recap, probably what you might have missed out is we are getting the data from your existing timekeeping system. So this analysis is based on your existing timekeeping system, which may be Chronos, which can be Workday, which can be any other HR system or timekeeping data system that you are using today. On top of that, what we are applying is basically the threshold. So I'm going to go back. So here what we've done is we are allowing our users from HR department or operations department who can define these thresholds. So you can say my threshold is 3%, or it can be 2%, it can be 4%, and then dynamically these numbers will start recalculating based on how much saving potential you may have based on number of violations that we see in the data set. Now, but again, as I said, these violations by per se may not guarantee that there is a savings, right? That's why we are looking at the high savings and low savings factor. So you cannot really, as I said, you cannot really save every hour of overtime because practically it may not be possible for you to do that. So having that kind of scenario, now what we are looking at is how can I get more information about what's happening within my overtime hours. So at a department level, at an employee level, at a different skill level, right? Who is spending more overtime? This is an example where we are looking at a hospital system, and as you can imagine, there is no predictive. You can't predict when a patient will walk in with what kind of problem. So in that scenario, you don't know whether somebody is going to require an emergency or an ICU, or somebody will need a surgery and those kind of things. So there is always that cushion has to be built into to make sure that you can take care of the situations, emergency situation. But otherwise, it is basically based on the staffing demand and utilization. So let's go now to look at. And there are also a lot of other scenarios. So how many people you are absent? So how many PTOs are there? How many people are on sick leave? And that can drive overtime for you for that day. So that's another way of looking at why you're higher overtime, not just because people are spending more hours, because instead of 10 people you're supposed to have for the work for a given day, you only have 6 because of 2 people are on PTO and 2 people have called in sick, right? So the rest of the 6 have to still manage the show. So those are the kind of scenarios we are looking at. We are looking at by tenure. So as you know, as all of we know that if you have people with higher tenure, obviously the wages are high, the rates are what you pay them in terms of salary or hourly rates are going to be much higher. So when you're looking at overtime costs, you're also looking at who is spending more time basically within your organization. Are the people who are more experienced, who are spending more hours, so that actually your overtime cost is much higher in case unless somebody with lower experience is spending. Again, this is more like at a high level, but there can be also a skill gap that you need to look at. So by looking at a payroll, so different payrolls that you might be applicable to these people. So by week of the month, so every week what's happening within your overtime bucket. But the key thing here is also going back to your staffing demand. I think so. This is where we wanted to look at. So looking at your staffing to demand performance. So we are looking at how the staffing is planned. What is the forecast staffing? So you every week, every month, the HR team, the administrative staff, the operations staff, they plan their people in terms of how many people you need. Again, it is based on historically what you have seen in terms of utilization, the number of orders you may have at hand or requests you may have. You're a service organization. And then basically, based on that forecast, and our system, we can calculate this forecast based on predictive analysis, and I'll quickly show you how it will work. You're looking at your required versus worked scenario. So how many actually required from staffing perspective in terms of number of hours, numbers of people, different skill levels, and so on and so forth. And you're also looking at how many really worked and how many didn't work. So that gives you, again, a scenario where people who are on PTO or planned PTO, that those people are not going to really show up for work. So you basically adjust your numbers accordingly. So that's one aspect to look at. And the other aspect that we look at is also by different utilization. So I'm going to go now and look at utilization of these people, what has happened in the past. So as you can see here, you have a full-time, part-time utilization pool, and there is a benchmark here, right, 100%, that are you utilizing them all the time, 100%. So as you can look at the part-timers are not really utilized up to the fullest potential. Again, this can be because they are part-timers. You might have to train them more. They are junior resources. So there can be a lot of those reasons why this can happen, and we look at it to see whether we can figure out those reasons by analyzing more data here. Similarly, as you look at your full-timers, though, they are actually spending more than 100%. That means definitely there is a training issue that we can see here, because your full-timers should not be really spending consistently more than 100% of their time, and that means they are consistently spending overtime hours. Either they are fixing the problems created by the part-timers, or there are training problems. They are not able to get the right kind of productivity from these people, and then they are basically working overtime to make up for that lost productivity hours. So these are some of the areas where we feel. So definitely there is something that has to be looked at in terms of part-timers that are being recruited, that are being brought into your organization, and see whether you can do a better management of these people, probably provide them additional training, or have separate trainers apart from your existing who are dedicated to getting them on board and making sure that they can perform and be productive as expected. So that's one way to look at it. This is another way to look at your schedule hours. So looking at standard hours, your schedule hours, actual hours, and then how many overtime hours are there. So sometimes, as you said, you can say that a person is supposed to work 40 hours or 30 hours or whatever standard hours you expect that person to work or a department to have. And then looking at, that's the standard hour, but based on the workload that you have from day-to-day perspective or a week-to-week perspective, that person, the department can have a different schedule hours. So let's say my standards hours are 40, but based on the workload, I'm supposed to work 45 hours this week. So that's my schedule hours. And then actually how many hours I did work. So my standard hours are 40, my schedule may be 45, but I actually ended up working 50 hours. And that's why there's a 5 hours of overtime. And basically then now you're figuring out why that overtime happened. You also have a headcount number there. So either because people are sick, people are not productive, training issues, something broke on the, if you're a manufacturing company, something happened in your plant. If you're a service company, the requests that you're handling are pretty complex. Or so there are those kind of things can happen, and that's why you're seeing now that actual hours are more. So labor data per se, when you look at just the labor data, it's going to give you a reason or a kind of a cause where things can go wrong, but you have to really look into other areas in terms of what happened really, to look into each and every case and figure out and we have information, we have data analysis that really can provide you that kind of. So we are looking at a stratification here, as you can see here, peer employees by employee type, department size, and overtime hours. So these are some of the trends, these are some of the analysis that can really help you understand what's going on within your labor analysis side. Let me show you one more example here. Give me 1 second. Let me show this so that. So as you can see here now, we are looking at utilization in terms of dollars, actuals, and budget. So what was the actual plan? What is the budget plan that you had in terms of utilization of hours? Based on this utilization, actually how many available hours that you have as an organization, you can drill down now. For example, I'm looking at engineering. This is a services firm. It's an engineering services company. We are looking at now by employee how many available hours I had, how many are chargeable, how many are actually utilized, what was my budget utilization for this employee, what's my variance, is it a positive or negative variance. So this is very critical. This is very crucial for services organizations like accounting firms, like engineering firms, or any services company that is really looking at this data, because people are your revenue, so, and they're also your biggest cost. So you want to make sure that everybody is staying about the budget ratio that you have from utilization perspective, and that is driving your revenue, that is driving your chargeability back to your clients, and that is also driving your bottom line, because the more people, if there are more people who are under your budgeted ratio of utilization, that means you have more people on the bench and you are not able to make more money. Similarly, now then we can go into the project details and look at how exactly your projects have been moving forward, what kind of efforts have already been spent on these projects, what kind of variance you have, how much efforts you've already spent, what kind of backlog you have, how much has been built. So when you're looking at this data now, you're trying to compare what's really happening on this project, and then you can actually look into a specific project and drill down further and look at, okay, this is the kind of variance I have, how much I've spent so far, what's the backlog, and then how I'm going to basically go into this plan. Now, this project variance can also be based on, let me go back. The project variance can also be based on, for example, they're based on a client. So sometimes the clients are not available, they are not able to give the time, and basically the aging in terms of how the work is being scheduled and how the work is getting performed can get impacted from that process.
It's not very clear.
Now, coming back to other aspects of it, from labor cost perspective, you're looking at different kinds of people you have, different regions. So the question sometimes you may have is, I have people available in Northeast region, whereas most of my work is in Western region or Southern region. Is there a way I can allocate these people who are in a Northeast region for these projects? So they can probably work remote, they can travel, and various those kind of activities, and basically that will allow you to improve your utilization of the people, improve your bottom line, and also making sure that you can satisfy your customer requirements in terms of what you're trying to do for them in terms of projects or services required. So this also gives you a very good way of looking at where your cost centers are and how these cost centers are there. You're looking at, okay, number of terminations by salary or hourly class, on which employees, when they're employed, what is kind of annual salary structure and things like that. You can also look at evaluations of your employees, so how they have progressed in terms of their evaluations, whatever evaluation structure you may have, how much bonus or how much incentives or commission you might have given to them in the past. Also the ratings or earnings in terms of how many people you have at the level and how many people you're managing. So there are a lot of that kind of analysis that can be driven here, again, from labor cost perspective, to understand how does it synchronize with your overall labor spend. Look at this one. Yeah, this is another one that I wanted to show you
And
here.
this is
So this is
this is a
actually a perfect
client
scenario because here you're looking at your this is again for a clinic where you have nurses and doctors. So you're looking at number of patients that are being managed by this clinic, and number of productive hours that are being spent by the entire staff. So let's say you have on average 8-hour schedule. You're looking at how many productive hours are really spent by your employees from that perspective. So the target was 625, as you can see here, and all of them, you're looking at the number of productive hours are actually much higher than that. Similarly, overtime, as you can see here, the target was 4% for this organization, whereas most of the time the target has been higher, except the year view with, even though the last week or last month the number has been higher, overall is on a YTD basis or year-to-date basis, they are still under control. So again, this shows the seasonality of what is happening within the organization. Like, this may be the busiest time of the year, and people are really working hard to get things out. But then you will also have lean time, which will offset the kind of threshold that you're looking for in terms of overtime. And also, one of the ratios that most of the hospitals do manage is FTE count per occupied bed. So typically the ratio is 1.25 or 1.5 based on how large or the small the hospital is. And here you are looking at what the ratio is. So definitely they have a challenge here because they are having more FTEs per occupied bed. So that means almost one full-time employee is managing two beds or two patients, which is a kind of a little bit on the higher side. So obviously they have to think about bringing more employees into the organization so that they can bring down the ratio to this level. This is just giving a perspective of how many full-time, how many part-time, how many employees are budgeted, how many are actually working, and that variance, and so on and so forth. So it gives you, again, a good analysis of what's happening every month. You can further drill down into various weeks, as you can see here. You can further drill down into days. So you can select a specific type of employee skill. So you're looking at laboratory skills, or let's say you're looking at imaging staff. So again, based on what you're looking for,
Michael and Mariella.
let's look at the overtime, and this is a very good way to look at overtime. So red bubbles are hospitals.
$2,500.
Their occupied bed ratio is larger than the defined. So as you can see here, there are some light red, whereas there are some the very dark ones as well. And you can actually drill down further into this portion and see what's happening within this ratio. So this is where you can see the overtime ratio is very high from nursing assistant. Again, which shift they are in, which is very important because a lot of times people work in shifts. So you're not just paying overtime to them, but you're also paying shift premium to them now. So your cost of actually having somebody working in a second shift or a third shift and doing an overtime is actually much higher than somebody just doing an overtime in a regular shift. So this also can help you to see whether you want to modify the schedules, do a better utilization there. Again, it's not possible all the time, but it just gives you a perspective of where all you can go and make those changes in your scheduling and utilize and planning efforts, so that you can go back and reduce these hours, or the burden on the employee who is probably spending 20% or 50% or 40% overtime in a specific time period. And along with that, we are also looking at now the productivity report. So this is also a good way to look at what's happening. Again, it's very difficult to read this report. Let me look at the productive hours here. So target is 6.25. As you can see that constantly the people are actually above the target, which is good. So people have been largely productive, but that also means that the organization or this hospital is understaffed because they are constantly working beyond the target numbers, and they are managing more patients than they should be based on the target that was set. So definitely this hospital needs to bring in more nursing staff, more caretaking staff, so that they can actually reduce the overtime and have a better care and better management for their patients. Overtime salaries, as you can look at here, so there's a monthly trend in terms of how much overtime they're spending, how many hours they're spending, whether the overtime hours are significantly higher, what's the variance. So again, this also provides you a very good way to look at, and we can look at a specific location or a department or a region, for example. We can look at different skill category or department here, and looking at that will tell you nursing is definitely one of the big spenders on overtime. Cost trends, so how the cost actually is going up or down. So when you nurses are based on their experience, their qualification and skills, are you increasing your cost? Are you decreasing your cost? So that kind of trend and variance that you're looking at. So what's your regular cost? What's your overtime cost? As you can see here, this hospital in Cincinnati and Tustin and Gulfport are actually spending a lot more money on overtime compared to most of the other hospitals, and that's where I think they need to look at and see whether they can bring in more regular nursing staff, more skilled nursing staff, so that they can actually reduce this cost and convert that cost into more regular cost, because out of this 100,000, it's a lot of premium that they're paying to their employees. And then we can also do some ad hoc reporting. So we can look at hospital here, you can look at job code, and you can say I want to look at hours. So this is a way, again, for anybody within the HR department or the administrative staff or operations staff to go and build their own reports. You can look at these reports in different formats. You can download these reports into Excel. So if you want to send it to Excel, you can send it to Excel and share with other people. You can download this in PDF, email it out to anybody else. So there are multiple ways. As you can see here, you can actually, the entire report has been downloaded in Excel, and then that can be used and shared across people. The system itself is pretty configurable. You can configure various data sources. In this example, we have data coming from your HR system, your data coming in from timekeeping system, your data coming in from patient scheduling system, or scheduling system, where in terms of getting the data, how the patients have come in. You can also get data from your sales system or Salesforce CRM systems, customer request system, or ticketing system. Let me show you one other example here. And then we'll quickly touch upon predictive analysis to some extent, and then we'll open it up for question and answer and see if you have any questions and what are you seeing in your organization, and how do you manage your labor spend, and how do you utilize or try to optimize the labor spend using data. Just give me a second here. Sorry. So while it is loading here, this is a churn analysis. So basically, we are looking at whether employees will leave your organization or not. And this is more of a statistical analysis that we have created based on certain criteria. So I'm looking at, give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. So we are looking at an organization here which is managing service requests from the clients. So tickets are coming in, how the tickets are coming in, what's the open scenario of tickets. So now for this kind of an organization here, we are looking at how many tickets are being resolved with first touch resolution, what is an average resolution date, what's the satisfaction score that you're getting. Now, if you go back to the number of people that are assigned, and we look at the number of agents who are managing this ticket, so how many tickets are being managed by each agent, what kind of satisfaction score they are getting, who is managing more tickets, which kind of service requests they are managing. So you are now analyzing this data, so not just the labor data, the cost data. Now you are also looking at how the flow of the work is coming in and how this work is being handled, what kind of SLAs you are driving from this work, number of tickets that they are taking to resolve, whether they are complex tickets, what are the reasons, what kind of tickets they are managing, whether they are complex tickets, how the tickets are coming in by hour. As you can see, this is an hourly graph. So all these kind of information can really help services organizations to look at what is happening within my labor resources, managing what, how many times, how many tickets they are managing, whether the complexity of the tickets are very high, low, as you can see, severity, so I can filter it by high severity, and I can look at who is managing more severe tickets, because typically these tends to take more time, as you can see here. How many tickets are being abandoned because I don't have the right resources, or because I have less people on. So all these kind of data can really give you a very good perspective of agent effectiveness that we are looking at and other information. So when we come back to the churn data, let me quickly go. So what we have done is we have taken all these scenarios, all this data into account, and now we are plotting actually a predictive model based on clustering those data and seeing what are the kind of employees who are spending more overtime, how many calls, as against customer service calls they are managing, what is the average length, how many minutes they are talking, whether it's day minutes, night minutes, things like that. This basically gives a very good analysis, again, more of a statistical analysis here in terms of how and where you can see problems. So you can see some of the clusters here are pretty involved. That means there is a lot of work that is being done here, and people who are managing these kind of calls or these kind of shifts needs to be looked at, because they may end up spending a lot of overtime hours and things like that. So this is where we are seeing how data analysis and statistical analysis and predictive technology can really help an organization to look at their labor cost, their labor, how the resources are being utilized, how the resources are being scheduled. Is there a better way to predict the usage patterns based on historically what has been happening, plus the kind of revenue drivers that you may have in terms of requests or production plans or purchase orders that you may have on hand that you need to complete, and timelines or the projects that you are working on. So when you combine all this data, it will really allow you to not only optimize your labor costs, but also actually utilize them for more profitable opportunities, make them more productive, also improving your bottom line as well as overall your employee satisfaction, because if the employees are constantly working overtime, they are going to get fatigued. They are definitely not going to like the situation. And usually we have seen in an organization when a certain set of employees usually it tends to work a lot more hours because they feel the responsibility that if they don't do that work, then nobody else is going to do that, and organization is going to suffer or customer is going to suffer. From that perspective, that we are trying to look at, okay, who is your most overworked employee, and is there a way you can really give those employees a better work day so that they can balance their personal life as well as their work life in an effective way, and also be more productive and efficient over a period of time. So we have about 15 minutes now. I just wanted to show this. So going back to the couple of slides that I wanted to show you before I open this up for question and answer. We have looked at different hospital systems, different customers in retail, different customers in manufacturing, and after analyzing their data, we have identified a lot of issues. Again, some of these organizations have a lot of employees, and we have seen a potential to save anywhere between 0.5% to 2.5, 3% of their total annual payroll if they can improve upon some of these. So financial impact, as you can see in some of these clients, is very significant. Most of the clients that we looked at, the data that we looked at, and we analyze that data and give them a way to take corrective actions. They were able to look at saving potential of anywhere between, as I said, 0.5% to 3%, 2.5, 3% of their payroll, which can be significant for an organization because this straight away adds to your bottom line. One of the organizations that we work with, a hospital system, they could save almost $40 million annually by putting into corrective action plans based on the data analysis that we were able to provide to them from labor cost perspective. So I think so. One of the things that we have seen, HR department or operations department, they do a lot of planning in terms of getting the right people and the right skills into the organization. They also do their best to get the right schedule and utilization. But as the things progress, everybody gets busy, and sometimes we lose the sight of what has happened and what is happening, because things are constantly changing in any organization, and then basically allowing us to do this data analysis on a continuous basis will help you to see are we doing the right thing, are we recruiting the right profile, are we getting the right skill, are we getting more productive people, are we spending too much time on training, are we spending too much time on getting people to do the are we hitting the SLA target. So there are so many things that we can analyze, and there is no simple way to do it. And what we are saying is, with AC Data Munch platform, that the applications that we have shown you today, the amount of data analysis capabilities that our platform supports today, including the predictive analysis and statistical analysis, you have one single platform where we can dump all this data, and then we can make meaningful analysis out of it so that it can make everybody's life easier and save significant amount of money to your bottom line. So with that, I would like to open up the whole session for any question answers. Please type in your questions here, and I will try and answer them as much as I can. We'll try to get to all your questions in the next 10 minutes. If not, we'll post it on our website and send out an email to everybody. Thank you so much. You can just type in the question in the chat window here, which is open. Or I can actually even open up the audio connection. So if anybody wants to ask a question, they can even ask the questions on the phone. Can everybody hear me, or? Any questions from anyone? Okay, it seems there are no questions from anybody today, so that's fine. That will allow me to give you 10 minutes back of your time today. So really thank you, everyone. Appreciate you joining us today for this webinar. As I mentioned earlier, we will send you a video link for this webinar today, and we will also put it on our website so you can go and look at it, see it at any time that is convenient for you. I apologize for having the audio issues in between, but hopefully we'll make sure that next time we don't have those issues going forward. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and then have a rest of the week, good rest of the week ahead.